Good morning, pre-calculus students. We are ready to go in here into our next set of notes here. So this is going to be still on parabolas. So this is an 8.1. If you have not taken a look at the pictures at the beginning of chapter 8, 8.1, detailing those conic sections, you should really do so to help you understand where these things are coming from. But we're going to look right now at how we're going to sketch these parabolas, how we're going to go through this process of sketching them. So yesterday we looked at how we got the equations for them and found out different parts from the equations. Now we're going to look at how we sketch. So let's start off here. We're going to first look at how we sketch by hand. We'll also talk about how we sketch with a calculator as well, but this is how we sketch by hand. And what we'll see is that the vertex form gives us a fairly nice way to sketch by hand. So we're going to consider these all to be in vertex form. So the first thing that we do is we locate the vertex. If our equation is not in vertex form, the way that we do that is we get it in vertex form. So that's the way that we would accomplish that, is we want to locate the vertex. The next thing that we'll do after locating the vertex is what we have to do is we have to locate the focus. So when we have it in vertex form, we know that our focus is that value p, which is the value we get when we divide that constant by 4 from our equation. And then so we locate the focus, and then we use the focal width, that is that absolute value of 4p, to graph the 2 points on either side of the parabola at the focus. So we go out to the focus, then the focal width is how wide it is, and so we get our width there. And we'll see that here as I walk through the process. As I walk you through the process, we'll see how to do it. Okay. Then we sketch the parabola after we have those 2 points. So let's go ahead and let's see how we do this. So here is a parabola equation, and so we want to go ahead and we want to sketch this. So we can notice some things about this right away. First thing, notice that the y is squared, so we know this is going to be one that opens up horizontally, either to the left or to the right. We can look here and see that our 4p is positive, so our p is positive. That means it will open up to the right, so we can identify those things right away. So now we can go ahead and we can follow our process. So we locate the vertex. So we see our x-coordinate is going to be -3 and our y-coordinate is going to be 1. So we see that will be our vertex. And then we will go ahead and we can know the focus. Since 8 is equal to 4p, p will be 2. So my vertex must be 2 and to the right, sorry, my focus must be 2 to the right of my vertex. So it would be at -1, 1. So there's solving for my p. P is 2, so my focus is at -1, 1. And the focal width is this absolute value of 4p, which is the absolute value of 8. So my focal width is 8. So I've identified all the significant pieces. Now I just have to go and do the sketch. And ideally, I would be able to do this on the board, and you would see it now. It would go step by step, but I'm going to have to kind of reveal it and try to describe what I'm doing. So the first thing I do is on my graph, I plot the vertex. So you'll see the graph here, but I'll go over what I would do. The first thing I would do is I would go back 3 and up 1 and plot my vertex. The next thing that I would do is I would go and I would plot my focus. It's at -1, 1. It's right here. It's 2 to the right of the vertex. Then I have to plot the 2 points on the parabola either side of the focus. And what I do is I use that focal width. Since it's 8, it has got to be 8 wide as I go across. So that means I have to go 4 up from the focus, and I plot the point right there. Go 4 down from the focus, plot the point right there. And then from that, I simply draw the curve as it goes through that point and continues on. You only need the 3 points. That gives you enough to get the general shape of the parabola. You don't need any more. That will do it. That gets it accurate enough for what we need to do. Okay, now let's talk about graphing with a calculator. So when we're graphing with a calculator, there's a couple different ways that we can do it. A couple different methods. So one method is, if I put the calculator down here, and I think I need to turn off this light. There we go. That'll make it so we can see the calculator screen a little bit better. So one thing we can do if I wanted to graph this is I can go under Menu. I can go down here to Algebra. And then under Algebra, there is Polynomial Tools. It's choice 8. Pick choice 8. Sorry, that's not going to do it. I'm doing this wrong. I forgot. We're graphing. Sorry, go to your graph screen. Okay, I've got something there. I don't want that anymore. Hit Menu. Pick my actions. Delete it all. Get rid of it. There we go. So now I hit Menu. And I want to pick choice 3, Graph Entry Exit. And what I want to enter is a specific type of equation. So I go to Equation Templates, choice 3. And now I have a choice. I'm going to pick Parabola. And notice I've got multiple forms. I've got the vertex form. And this is a little different vertex form than what you're used to. This is actually one that's been solved for Y. This is the standard form. And this is a vertex form that's been solved for X, like this. The problem with using this is you actually have to solve it for the unsquared variable. So if I wanted to graph this one using the calculator, I would actually have to solve for the unsquared variable. I would have to solve for X. And that's really a lot of work to use that template when it's in this vertex form right here. But that is workable. So a lot of times though, if it is that case, a lot of times when we're going to graph it with our calculator, so usually if it's in vertex form like that, we just graph by hand. But if it is already solved for Y, either this form or this form, we can pick it and then we can simply enter our values. So let's go ahead and let's look here. So here we go. So we want to solve the given equation for Y. Now, here's the key. If we're using our calculator's app, so if you have an Inspire, you have that choice. If you don't have an Inspire, you have to solve it for Y, no matter what. You cannot solve it for X. The calculator, if you have an Inspire, you can solve it for X if the X is unsquared, or the Y if the Y is unsquared. You want to solve for the unsquared variable. But these steps I'm giving you are the ones that work for any calculator. I'll show you what to do on the Inspire here in a second. So enter the function or functions if Y was squared in your calculator, and then sketch the graph as it appears on your calculator. So you can pause the video to write that down. Let me show you how we're going to work this. So here's our example, and we're going to pick the hard one. I'm going to pick one where the Y is squared. So the truth is this would be much easier to just graph by hand. We know Y is squared. We know it's going to open up horizontally. This is positive. It'll open up to the right. I could quickly find the vertex, which is going to be 2, -3. I could quickly find the focus, which is going to be 3 to the right. And so it would be much easier to sketch it by hand. But we're going to look at how we do this. So we're going to solve this for Y. If we solve it for Y, what happens is I have to take the square root of both sides. So I get both a positive and negative square root here. And then I have to subtract 3, and I get this. So this is if you don't have an Inspire. So this is how you do this without an Inspire. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to take my calculator. So I've got this solve for Y. And so this is, and I just go to my regular old graph screen here. So go back here to just my regular old graph screen. And I'm going to enter both the positive and the negative. So I'm going to enter the square root, and I know this is going to be 12 times and I had x minus 2, x minus 2, let's see, close the parentheses, and then that was going to be, I believe, minus 3. Let me double check, make sure I got that right. Yes. Make sure your minus 3 is outside of the radical. And when I hit enter, notice what I get is I get the top half of the parabola. To get the bottom half, I now have to enter the negative 1. So I enter negative square root 12 times x minus 2. Make sure I go outside the radical to put my minus 3 and hit enter. And now I have the bottom half, so I have the entire parabola opening to the right. That's what you have to do if you don't have an Inspire. If you do have an Inspire, what you can do is you can go back and look at this situation here, and you can solve for simply the unsquared variable. So from this very original one here, I could solve for x. So I could divide both sides by 12, or multiply by 1/12 if we want to think of it like that, and add 2. So what I can do is if I, writing that down, I'll put it down here. So writing that down, if I was solving for x, what I would do is I would get 1/12 times y plus 3 squared, and then I would add 2, and that would equal x. Now that it's solved for x, I can go into the calculator, and I'm going to delete this out. And now I'm going to go to my menu, and now I am going to go to the equation templates, and I'm going to pick parabola, and I'm going to pick the one that's solved for x in vertex form. So notice when I see that, I know that what I've got here multiplied is going to be 1/12. So I have to put in that 1/12. Y, notice y is, it's y subtract, but since it's added to 3, I have to put in negative 3. It's y minus negative 3. And then for the x value there, it's going to be plus 2. I put in the 2 right there. And notice there is the parabola. So you can do it either way. That's the way you do it with your calculator. You get a sketch of this no matter what. And there is your homework. It's 32 through 48 even. Some of them are sketching by hand. If you sketch it by hand, I want to see your focus. I want to see in your graph where I can see where you did your focus and your points on either side. And if it's this way, I want to see how you solved it to put it in your calculator, and then just draw a sketch of the graph that you did. Okay, hope that makes sense. And I'll be available this afternoon at 12:30 to 1:30 to answer any questions and help you with anything you're struggling with. Okay, we'll see ya.